This is Neck of the Woods, and I have a follow up video to my last video that I made about a week ago called My General Experiences in Nashville, Tennessee. In this video, I'm going to talk specifically more about what happened to me when I was attending college while I was living in Nashville, as opposed to just my overall experience like I did in the last video. And more than likely, I might even make two parts of my experiences while I was in Nashville, because a lot happened while I was there, but I'm not going to make like a whole series of videos on that. So anyhow, so I started off, I had graduated high school when I was 17 years old in 1999. And then my mom died a month later. So that shipped me, that as a result of that, I had to move to Tennessee pretty much against my will. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I was still 17. Technically, that made me a minor according to law. So I requested to stay with my dad. He was living out here in LA at that time, during that time, and he refused, him being the piece of shit that he is. So I had to move to Tennessee and live with my grandmother. Now, I love my grandmother. I have nothing against my grandmother. I don't have any criticism to speak of her whatsoever. And not only did I stay with my grandmother, I also stayed with my play aunt. And when I say play aunt, I mean she was, well, I guess it was like a down south tradition, or it was something that they wanted me to do, and I referred to her as Aunt so and so. I'm not going to tell you her name, her real name, but I referred to her as my aunt, and she was not blood related to me whatsoever, but she was a friend of the family. Really, really, be honest, she was just a friend to my grandmother. My family, and this is my mom's family on my mom's side. They're a very peculiar bunch of people, to say the least, and they just could care less about her. So that's that. And they, you know, let me live with them while I attended school. And so I went there, I went to my college, and I had an expectation. My expectation was to go to my college, have fun, get an education, do the best I could, which I did. Eventually, I met some people, I met some friends, and I went to some parties and I went to some clubs. But I still studied, I went to class, and I did my thing. And I passed most of my classes. And when I didn't pass my classes, unfortunately, I just had to retake the class over again and stay at my school even longer until I finally finished. And the mistake I made, well, one of the mistakes I made while attending school, was I did not get more involved in the different programs they had, the different activities like student council, student government. I didn't get more involved into um, studies, volunteering, internships. I didn't really, at that time, and I wrongly thought this at the time, I didn't really see any point in that. But I did not know that if I had um, done that and partook in those other activities, I would have had other stuff to put down on my resume, and it probably would have helped me out more in life. I See, this just goes to show you from a lot of people who are not educated. They always told me, oh, well, they wanted me to be educated. They didn't have a problem with that. I was supposed to, do great things, and it was expected of me, and they wanted me to be successful. That this is my family on my mom's side. Most black people usually don't really have that sort of support as it relates to education. Usually, there's a lot of jealousy and enviousness, and a lot of hating going on in the black community toward those who are educated or pursuing education. And I have received my share of hate, and I've said that numerous times on my YouTube channel. I've mentioned that numerous times, but however, and I find this kind of surprising, but oh well, I didn't receive that too much from my immediate family. At least not from my aunts and uncles. Maybe from my cousins. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe there's a little bit of hate there. Most of my hate came from my any random black person I run into out here on the streets or in public or in just regular life. But the experience I had, now that's really what this video is about. I was in Tennessee for 7.5 years. That's how long I lived there. It took me 6 years to graduate college because I went through a lot, and I'll probably talk about that in my two-part video relating to my college experience, the one after this video that I'm going to make. But yeah, it took me 6 years to graduate, and the first year and a half, I actually liked it. I was excited. It was my first year. I mean, I visited Tennessee numerous times growing up, visiting my grandmother and whatnot. So this was not my first time being in Tennessee, but this was like my first time in a while out of California, and I was excited. I liked it. I was open to this new experience, and I was happy for it. Well, I really wasn't happy because my mom had died, and I was sad, but I really wasn't that sad, to be quite honest. Again, I'm going to make a future video in the future talking about that. But people probably thought I was really, really, really sad, but I wasn't that sad over my mom's death. I was just a little sad and unhappy. I was really more confused more than anything. But yeah, the first year and a half, I liked living in Tennessee. But right after that, going into my second year and on, I started to hate Tennessee. Now, I talked about that in the last video, but a lot of that also tied in with my experience at college. Because also, not only part of my expectation to just do well in school, but I also envisioned myself in meeting up with a beautiful black woman, beautiful black young lady, and who, looking to like possibly, date like other normal young men. That's what they usually do. And, well, I never dated any girl that I knew at my school from my college university. That just did not happen whatsoever. There's a lot of beautiful women there, but I wasn't able to attract them because, for a number of reasons. Um, well, would you believe that a lot of those women were into what I call t-shirt niggas, which is the stereotypical black thug or criminal, doughboy, gangster, gangbanger, street hustler, or just a straight up dusty bum. Those were the men who got the pussy. And then, and if it wasn't those type of men, and I really believe this made up about 80%. I don't know the true number, so for any troll that's going to come in and say, oh, you can't say that's all, or you don't know the exact number, you know what? Go fuck yourself. But from my observation to my estimation, I would say from what I've seen, it seemed like 70 to 80% of the women there pursued t-shirt niggas. And the rest, or most of the rest, generally speaking, and I'm sure there were a few decent black women there who weren't quite what I'm about to describe, who were the exception. But I barely, well, I'll get into that in a minute. But the most of the rest of the percentages who might not go for t-shirt niggas, instead they were either the straight up gold digging young women, or they just wanted a man to have his shit together, which was kind of unreasonable since he's attending school or college. But and if that was the case, and they know that the man doesn't have his shit together, then a lot of those women just didn't look at the men at the school. Or, and also here, and I don't, and another part is you have the fraternity brothers, the frat boys, the Q dogs, the Alpha Phi Alpha, the Sigmas, the Iotas, and the Kappas. So those are the black fraternity brothers. Yeah, they had their share of pussy too. And you also have a lot of overlap, because you had some women who, even though they go for t-shirt niggas, but if it wasn't t-shirt niggas, then it would be one of the fraternity brothers. Either way, I didn't fit into any of those categories. I wasn't a fraternity brother, and I wasn't a t-shirt nigga. And I also wasn't the nigga who had his shit together, because I'm in school. I was working toward that, or I just didn't have lots of money. That was pretty much it in a nutshell. So that was like a big disappointment right there. One of the biggest, because when you're a young man, you have needs just like every other young man. You want to date other women too. And yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to talk about more of this in the next video. I'm coming up toward the 15-minute mark. So if you like what you heard so far, just like it and share it to a friend. Make a comment. Whether you agree or disagree, it's okay. It's all good. That is all I'm going to speak for this one right here. Neck of the Woods. I'm out.